On a test, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Kristen yesterday. I'm like, what hell are we gonna walk into
Well,
tomorrow?
I feel like I'm like,
No,
I
they
might
vote.
say
So they
something like,
voted.
you guys need to
Yesterday,
you guys need to behave.
yeah, the high school voted. The high school voted yes.
Yes, and Hutchinson voted.
So
There's, like,
everybody
some
has
sort of
voted.
Except
Colonial
Siwin.
voted yes. South
Siwin,
Pelham.
there
Like,
was finally
I feel like saying I'm not going to come to meetings where you're like,
Yeah. I was
Prospect Hill
literally,
voted.
Kristen had not heard from them as of yesterday. They finally reached out today. It's been over a month. Finally a response. So
And
they're gonna vote at their March 13th meeting.
it's been, first of all, it was already late when she told them.
Exactly.
Because yesterday, poor Sperano was calling people. Teka, he called me before
That's right.
dinner.
He
He was like,
needed a
let's get
quorum.
into a meeting. And everybody he knew were like, we all just logged in to make this vote. We're like,
Yep.
we're here for the vote. That's all we want.
Yeah, I don't know what their deal is, honestly, but
I
they.
didn't forget my password, but it's not working.
Go, do you have it on your phone? Saved on your phone?
No, but I know what my password is. It's been my password since 2022.
So slow down. You probably got a key. Why is it so cold all the time? Jesus Christ.
Try another way. Thank you. You're like, slow down.
I'm so cold.
You're like, it's my age.
Claire is not here tonight.
I forgot she's on vacation. Huh?
Yes.
Good for her.
So, yeah, so I'll do a super brief update on
Yeah.
the residency, or the registration.
Don't do that.
I know, open that can of worms.
So is this still applicable? The
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did it?
No, that's what I'm saying. I was like, well,
okay.
I guess we discuss particular students if we're talking
Student
about
special education.
right.
Employment, we talked last time.
Yeah, the coaches.
You're like, is this?
We'll make it fit.
What other questions you're hoping to answer this ones that you didn't get? Anything more?
I just want to know how the response was to
Yeah.
cross school.
We've been trying hard for months.
Yeah, it's
We're
like
aware of it. We're working.
it's an imperfect start to the season.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done it before.
Yeah, and that's
Generalized shortages in coaches.
Coach shortage.
Didn't.
They've been looking for it since maybe last year.
The season will proceed. They'll figure it out.
Yep.
Won't be perfect. Vaccinations.
Yeah.
And by the way, I actually don't think Pelham parents are worse than other.
I'm not saying worse than others. I'm saying just getting the word through that we were position that we didn't expect.
I've seen.
The notes when we band?
Oh yeah.
Is it
John.
Candido?
I'm ready.
No. I know the Candido. Oh, be careful with your water. No.
Yep, it'll be me, then Tracy, then Joe.
7:30
I have seen
Charlotte.
Thank you.
all over the place.
John.
Yeah, give
Come,
it to
come to the Catherine.
Catherine.
Downstairs?
Yeah, lunatics.
Sit.
When it comes to kids.
Oh, okay.
I think it's an issue.
He's got to be in the 12 year. Yeah, he's got to be my son's age.
You're ready.
I know because a couple.
Like
But it's very concentrated.
professionalization of these sports.
Oh my God.
Okay, we're ready.
No, I know. I got some.
I mean, only because we're late.
They are. They are.
I think it's just, I see it
To be like, what do we do? What should we do? How do we advocate?
We're gonna get going. Okay, we're ready.
it's a fact.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting of March 4th, 2026. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do I have a motion to appoint Dr. Champ as the clerk pro tem?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Champ, for doing that. Natalie, would you please reiterate our executive session motions?
Yes, we met in executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular persons and the record of a particular students.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Okay, I'll be brief so we can get started. Tonight we begin a series of meetings where the district reviews the proposed 2026-2027 budget line by line. These meetings reflect the district's commitment to a very transparent and disciplined annual budget process. At the start of budget season, the board provided guidance. We said preserve programs, support special education, continue to manage staffing responsibly, and stay within the tax cap. Dr. Champ and the cabinet carefully reviewed the budget, recognizing that simply rolling over last year's budget would automatically increase costs and make a bigger budget for next year. While this proposed budget reflects the board's guidance, it includes reductions and efficiencies in order to remain tax cap compliant. The school budget reflects our community's values with respect to public education, while also responding to rising costs in areas such as healthcare, special education, and transportation. Staying within the tax cap requires prioritization and careful management. For example, the district continues to use retirements to manage staffing, its most important resource and also its largest expense, while ensuring this does not materially impact the robust programs that make Pelham one of the best school systems in the country. While the district remains within the tax cap, under this proposed budget, costs are rising faster than CPI, the Consumer Price Index. Over time, this makes tax cap compliance increasingly challenging, a reality that many peer districts have already faced. That's why we're having this conversation now to proactively and transparently so the community understands both the value of Pelham Public Schools and the financial reality of sustaining excellence in a tax cap environment. Okay, so tonight's discussion will begin with a budget overview, followed by a line-by-line review of PPS and counseling, followed by athletics. These are key areas for the district, and it's important to understand the district's approach and the financial considerations involved. Special education is one of the fastest growing expenses, driven by student need and legal requirements. As we review PPS and counseling, it's important to see how the district plans to maintain its robust services while ensuring sustainability and balancing resources across the district. Athletics is another focus this evening. Pelham offers a strong and broad athletic program, particularly for the size of the school system, with high participation across boys and girls teams at the varsity, modified, and unified levels. The district evaluates new sports or program expansions carefully, considering things like participation or the want to participate, cost, equity and inclusivity, and as well as long-term sustainability of any program. And then speaking of athletics, and then I'll hand it over to Dr. Champ, I want to give a hearty congratulations to the girls varsity basketball team who will compete in the Section 1 finals this Friday at the Westchester County Center. So good luck to them. Okay, with that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Champ.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
And yes, thank you, Jackie, for, we're excited about the game. I think it's 5 o'clock on Friday, County Center. So we're really excited for them and pumped. So I also have just a really brief superintendent's report because the big event of the night is our budget. We want to get to that. Good luck to all the students who are participating in the Olympics this week. Our 2 student board reps are not here tonight because it's Olympics week. So
Yep.
Friday marks the end of that.
Yes.
I'm sure it is a good spirited week of fun for the kids, and look forward to seeing the outcome of that on Friday. Today was a professional learning day, an early release PLC day. Just wanted to say again, thanks to the parents in our community in particular for their flexibility to continue to support these days. They're incredibly invaluable to us as we work to deliver on our professional learning goals for the year and complete the maps that we set in place to move our initiatives forward. I got the first look at our Tri-States report today, just in draft form, but in there it reiterates again the value of the professional learning time, especially when you're trying to implement something as big and far-reaching as MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support. So, and trying to really deepen Tier 1 work in particular, which impacts all teachers and all students. So we're thankful for that time and value that very much. Couple upcoming events to keep on the calendar. Don't forget, we have a board coffee next week on Thursday, on the 11th, I believe that is, or is that Wednesday? Yes, we did just have Wednesday. Yep, it's Wednesday, the 11th, thank you. It's going to be at Hutchinson. We're in our rotation of schools. Drop in anytime between 8:15 and 9:45, I think. So you don't have to come on time, you don't have to stay the whole time. Pop in, have a cup of coffee, chat with us for a little bit. We'd love to see folks there. And also on the 10th of next week, on Tuesday, we're going to have our next site plan advisory committee over at Siwanoy to continue the work and input around the outdoor space. The high school is currently in the process of wrapping up scheduling and course requests for next year. Mr. Farrell is here with us tonight as one of our, to support our budget presentation. That got bumped a couple days because of the snow, but they're still keeping that as on track as possible, taking requests, and that really is what kicks off the staffing and master scheduling development for next school year. So one issue that certainly, I know it's been on the radar, it only impacts a small number of students, so a lot of folks may not be aware of it, but we certainly wanted to address it. As we continue to phase in the next-gen science standards, there's different cohorts have been kind of gone through the system on different standards. So what we have next year, again, it only impacts probably 12 students, 12 to 15 students at the most, but a communication just went out from Mr. Llewellyn today targeted to those students. What we have is students coming up who are next year's juniors will have come through their educational experience on one set of standards. Next year's seniors came through on a different set of standards. Not better, worse, higher, lower, different. So the issue is when you get to a course like AP Biology, it tends to be a mixed grade level course. A lot of juniors and a lot of seniors together. So the problem there is when you've got kids coming with different standards, you've got different levels, different preparation, different readiness and preparedness. So it makes it a challenge to plan instruction for all the students in the same class. So in some cases, students are being recommended to hold off and take it their senior year because the curriculum will be adjusted for that larger group accordingly. Students are being asked to talk to their counselor, talk to the teacher, make some educated choices. If they want to remain and go ahead and continue into the AP Bio as a junior, they're more than welcome to do that. We'll provide, just counseling for them and make sure that they go in, really eyes wide open about what they're going to need to do, and we'll work with them. If enough students were to sign up for it, certainly we would consider, can we run a separate section as well? That's always an option if you get a critical mass of students, which then we could have a junior class and a senior class. If we were to have enough. We're not sure yet. We have, a small number of students interested, whether that many follow through, whether it's that viable. Those are still unknown questions at this point in time, but we do try to look for all opportunities to make sure the students can get what they need. And for those who don't take it this year, we fully expect to be able to offer it to them next year. So I think there's a lot of different pathways to still get that same level of rigor in the course transcript, in the high school study of course of study for their transcripts, especially in the sciences. Similar problem impacts AP Chemistry, but it's not as big of an issue because that generally is mostly mostly juniors anyways. Mm-hmm. Small smattering, like you can count less than one hand, you can count the number of seniors that would take AP Chem in any given year. So the problem really was centered around AP Bio. Again, something we knew was going to happen. Communication came about a little bit after the fact, but we're in the process of working to make sure that that's fully communicated, and students who want to take that course will be able to take that course before they complete high school. And then finally, one more item. Dr. Comerford is not able to be with us tonight, but her office has been working to prepare for the start of the acceleration to electronic registration. And we talked about that with the board last year. The plan is that all incoming ninth graders for next year and incoming sixth graders, so our current eighth grade, rising ninth graders, and then the fifth to sixth graders, we would ask families to resubmit some basic materials to update their registration and help us with our conversion to electronic registration. So the communications for that are set to go for the 8th to 9th grade cohort. Those are scheduled to go out hopefully by end of next week with we're going to be asking parents to upload the requested information into the electronic portal by March 25th. And depending on how responsive folks
Yeah.
are, then we'll start
There's
the
enough
processing
time
of
to-
that. Yeah, so we're just kind of completing the big bulk of kindergarten registration right now, which is why we were waiting. Originally, we were down staffing in the office first. We got that rectified. Now we've just completed the bulk of kindergarten registration. That will continue through the summer. But now we're ready for that next tranche of work.
And you
So
said that falls under Dr. Comerford.
yes,
Okay.
yep. She
Didn't know that.
oversees the registrar, so it's
Excellent.
under her. And then the goal would be to finish the bulk of that by June and then start the fifth to sixth grade uploading of information as well, so that hopefully by the start of next school year, we will have uploaded 2 additional grade levels into the system, and then the following year, we would do the same, 8th to 9th, 5th to 6th grade. We do that for 3 years, then we should have completed the entire conversion to electronic registration by the end of 3 years.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. And I think with that, I'm going to take my water, and I'm going to start over at the podium. I'm going to kick us off, and then Jim is going to join to take us through a lot of the detail, and then we'll wrap up and have some discussion and get into the PPS budget, followed by the athletics budget. First off, I want to thank certainly the business office. Jackie Vigil is with us tonight, our district treasurer. Jackie works very closely with Jim Rickey and all the members of the business office and the administrative team as we assemble the budget each year, as well as the clerical staff to put together the binders and does all the day-to-day work of the business office. I want to thank John Sabalos for his help with updating our presentation this year. He and Alex worked very closely. John is actually doing administrative internship under Jim Rickey, so pursuing his business officials certification. So John is also putting some hours in with us tonight. He's not just here out of the kindness of his heart in his dire interest in board meetings, but he's also here as a critical partner and as a learning opportunity for him. And thank you as well to other members of the administrative office, the PPS department in particular, Jean Farrell, Director of School Counseling, Dr. Lauren Ribeiro, Special Education Supervisor for Elementary, and Mr. Greg Lau, Special Education Supervisor for Secondary. Very pleased and thankful to have them all here with us tonight, and we're going to try to move things along because we've got a lot of ground to cover. So a lot of this, we're going to move pretty quickly through the beginning because this is similar to where we began last time. The board charged us with this guidance, and Jackie reviewed that with us as the opening to her comments tonight. So these really were the frameworks, the guardrails as we approach the budgeting process this year. Our values are anchored in our strategic plan, in our mission, vision, and the values that we come to, thinking of keeping in mind community and belonging, wellness and balance, and learning and growth for all of our students and staff. The results, our district, knowing these things, as Jackie said as well, we're a top school in the country. We're in the top 100 in the country. We're in the top 3% nationally, top 5% in New York State. Our students perform incredibly well on standardized tests, at least 80% being proficient coming through 3 through 8, and then those numbers only getting higher as they complete through our system. As we've talked in the past, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Regardless of where you start, the bulk of our students by the end are really achieving at high levels by the time they leave our system, which is the success of the system as a whole. We continue to have, our AP offerings, dual enrollment offerings are producing great results for our students in high quality, rigorous experiences. We've got specialized experiences for students and opportunities to expand their civic readiness, expand their research skills across department areas, continued success in the fine and performing arts. We've got a wealth of extracurriculars. As we'll hear later tonight, we put out 80 teams a year, which is, even though we're like an A/B size school district, we're putting out the same number of teams as AAA school districts. And that's a testament to the incredible programs that we put on and the commitment and involvement of our fine students in their connection to the schools. At the same time, we do all this, and we continue to be one of the lowest spending in the BOCES, Southern Westchester BOCES region. We are third lowest per pupil spending, and we are putting out all of these programs, which I think is a testament to years of strategic focus, putting resources where they're needed, building program based on our needs, and also what we want our kids to have in our community, investing in and believing in our schools and supporting us faithfully year after year. So to get more specific, this budget in particular certainly aligns with the strategic plan. It recognizes, and I need to always start by recognizing our incredibly talented faculty and staff and leaders in supporting the whole child every time you get to meet with them. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I got a preview of the Tri-States report this week. When I go back to that debrief session we had with them, one of the first things and one of the things that they just could not stop talking about is the warm welcome that they received from our faculty, how professional they were, how warm, how welcoming, how open to feedback, how vulnerable they were, how eager they were to talk about their work, how much they loved their work, and how much they really talked and valued their work around the whole child. They understand excellence, they understand achievement, but they also understand that that's one piece of the puzzle, and that in order to do that, they have to care for and really attend to the needs of the whole child. So they are what makes Pelham special at its foundation. In this budget, in addition to continuing to support them in the work that they do, we're continuing to invest in high-quality special education programs. I know, as the board is aware, we started investing in integrated co-teach at the elementary level several years ago, and that was something that we had struggled to do as a district with neighborhood schools. It is very challenging to do that from a financial perspective. But we finally took the plunge a few years ago, and we've been steadily investing year in year and growing that through the elementary years. We've had it at the secondary for a long time. This year, we have integrated co-teach at Hutchinson School in grades K through 2. Next year, those will move up. They will graduate to their next grade level, so they will move up to grades 1 through 3. And we are in this budget looking to add open up a new kindergarten integrated co-teach program based on the needs of students. And based on kind of where that critical mass is, we are planning to open that new ICT class at Prospect Hill. So I'm incredibly excited about that. We will be proposing adding a teacher for that program, of course, so that we have the co-teacher necessary for integrated co-teach. We're very excited to have that at Prospect Hill because our goal has been over the years to try to maintain a footprint of specialized special education programs at every school, because we believe all students benefit from inclusion, especially having our students who are differently abled from a learning perspective in each school. So we had a program there several years ago. The program phased out, but this is giving us an opportunity to start to bring that in, and we're really excited about that. Additionally, our personalized learning to meet student needs. We personalize in so many ways in the general sense, in just basic good instruction, tier 1 instruction, differentiated instruction is something that we focus on all the time. But we also look for ways, how do we personalize and meet the learning needs of students along the way? Our big focus this year, as the board knows, has been continuing to strengthen our work in the multi-tiered systems of support, where we use data to identify student need for support as well as enrichment, and then customize and personalize the education for them. We've strengthened the what I need period at the elementary schools. We've invested in interventionists. We've been working to build our data systems around that. So we're continuing that work. We are, as well, when I think about personalized learning and meeting the needs of students, I even think about things like, this wonderful list of robust offerings that we have here for our students. So we think about personalization at the individual student level within the classroom every day. We have systems in place to work to personalize the supports and the enrichment that students need along the way through MTSS. And then from a programmatic perspective, we work to offer all of these things, whether it's world languages that are supported through, FLES at the elementary level and then 4 different language options at the secondary level. Our AP and college course offerings, those are specifically designed for broad opportunity of areas of interest as well as levels of approach to. Some students want an AP-driven course. Some students don't want an AP-driven course. They want the college experience, but they don't necessarily want that test-driven approach. So things that students can really sink their teeth into. And over the last several years, since I've been in the district, we've expanded access to BOCES career technical programs. We used to limit that to 10. I think we've gone as high as 25, 26 students attending. So that's an investment in our students and broadening our opportunities to them. So this budget continues to support all of those offerings to our students and opportunities so that we continue to be the Pelham that we want to be. As we approach the budget each year, all of these things have to be taken into account, as well as a lot more of the actual, details and the kind of the operational sides and the technical sides of how do we make all this happen in a school year. We know what we value, we know what we believe in, we know the culture and the experiences that we want our students to have, but what are all the things that make that possible? So we looking at everything: reserve funds, tax cap, anticipated state resources. We have to take all these factors in, and this process starts early in the fall. And we are now in that next stage of coming to you with an actual budget proposal from me to the board to begin with. So as we do that work, we have to look at, okay, what are the resources that we have to work with in any given year, especially what are the resources in the coming year. So we all know that we've been functioning with the tax cap now going between 10, almost going on 15 years pretty soon. So that is designed specifically to keep tax growth at or below the level of inflation. So we've shown this graph in prior presentations. So you're limited at 2% or the CPI, whichever is lower. CPI has been much higher in recent years, so we've been limited at that 2% as our starting point. You calculate that plus a growth factor. You go through a series of exclusions, which the board has in your binder, to arrive at your tax cap. So given the tax cap calculations, the maximum allowable tax levy increase with the budget as constructed, and I say it that way because part of that, how we structured our reserves, does have an impact on what that tax cap ultimately is. The maximum allowable is 3.72%. That is tax cap compliant. If we were to exceed that, we would need a 60% approval, not just a normal 50%. So in addition to calculating that tax cap to look at the tax levy, we also look at what are the state aid increases, what are the other things that impact the revenue side. So overall, and we clarified this again following our last meeting, our net state aid increase is $385,000. So you'll see as Jim gets into the detail of state aid, we had some decreases in some areas, increases in some areas. With the ins and outs, ultimately, $385,000 increase in state aid. We are seeing an expected reduction in increased earnings, maybe not as bad as we thought it was, a couple months back, but still a decrease, and we want to be responsible in how we're budgeting for that. And then also in this budget, you're going to see a debt service, the debt service fund that we've used over the last several years. The appropriation of those funds, we've actually reduced the amount that we're applying this year. And again, that's one that has a direct impact on the actual tax levy, allowable levy percentage. We're reducing that, and that again is a strategic move given the upcoming years with the onset of the new capital projects and how we want to stagger use of debt service over years. So once we know what the revenue side of the equation is, we have to look at the expenditure side, understand that, and put together and see, project what our needs are going to be in the coming year. As I said, we want to maintain our program, but maintaining the program that we have been putting forward that is a top program in the state and in the nation is becoming increasingly difficult due to inflation. Rising costs are rising faster than our revenues are increasing. So as we looked at what are those budget cost drivers, these areas really were the ones that stood out as the significant drivers. So of course, we're a people business, employee salaries, that's going to always be our biggest driver. That makes sense. We're 85% personnel driven. So that's a normal expected expense. Certainly we saw in a prior presentation, the slope of that line has been a little lower. And part of that, I think, is the normal attrition that happens with retirement and replacement. And also these last several years, we have been very attentive to trying to reduce strategically through using attrition and making sure that the resources are going where they are needed. We've seen, though, in areas that we really don't have a lot of control over, healthcare, special education, and transportation costs. So a lot of that is just driven by the market, and some of that is driven by student need and law. So those are areas that we continue to see. And then when we looked at our debt service overall, and again, this is a net number, so decrease in debt payments and in debt principal and interest payments, but also a decrease in state aid, but also then the addition, anticipating the addition of interest related to a ban in the coming year related to the new capital projects. All that net is an increase just short of $500,000. So these drivers alone, when you put them together, you're talking about just about a neighborhood of $2 million in costs just from these cost increases from these categories alone. So again, then when we say, okay, we've got our revenues, we go to our budget, we've got our revenues, we've got our costs, and how we see them increasing when we roll over our current existing budget and look at these projected increases. As we said last time, that gave us about a $2 million gap where costs were exceeding revenues. So then we had to start the hard work of how do we bring this together to provide a balanced budget to the board that is in line with our values and still protects program, still provides for special education needs, and still is being sensitive to staffing from a sustainability perspective. So as we said last time, these are the guiding principles that we approach that conversation with. Still wanting to advance our strategic plan, but really being more thoughtful about what are the wants versus what are the needs, and looking critically at the wants to find ways to reduce with the least impact on students, least impact on program, and to make use of those opportunities for attrition to the greatest degree possible. So what does all that mean? That really is kind of what we come down to here. So how did we go about closing the budget? So this is where I want to provide a little bit more detail tonight than I did in the last meeting. And then I do this because as we now go through the next 3 nights of line by line, this is going to be sprinkled in throughout. So we just wanted to kind of give you a general sense of the buckets that we looked at so that you can really look for those breadcrumbs as we go through and understand. So as I said, we want to start as far away from the classroom as possible. So are we maximizing our revenues? Very reasonable question. The only ways that you can make a budget work, either increase your revenues, reduce your expenditures. I mean, those are pretty much your options. So we updated revenues, and part of that speaks to the budget being a living document. We start this process, as I said, way back in the fall. We know some factors, we estimate some factors, and then some of those become clear and become more specific as we move through the fall and into the winter. So things like, understanding what the actual increase on benefits is going to be, getting our first state aid runs. Those types of information, they tend to roll in over the course of months. So as they come in, we update our revenues, we update the accuracy of our projections. Also things like looking at how do we, are there any additional tuitions that we can now capture from some of the border properties where we've got houses on the line between the Bronx and Pelham, where people pay into New York City taxes, making sure that we recoup all of those taxes back to us. So that's our business office does a fantastic job of really turning every stone over to make sure that we are optimizing and getting every revenue. So we did find some additional funding there, things like the New York City tuitions, et cetera, refining the contributions to other areas that we need to look at from an expense side as well. So that was kind of step one. Obviously, that's not going to be enough, most likely, in a given year to close a $2 million gap. So then next we move, what are the operational efficiencies that we can find? We always work to be efficient, but we know we've got to tighten, sharpen the pencil more from time to time. So as we looked at that, we thought about areas that we could potentially pare back. So things like overtime, things like coverage for lunch supervision. We've been very generous in that regard. Are there ways that we can optimize and put a little bit more limit around that and still deliver on the safety and security and the school culture that our schools need? So we looked at areas like that. trying to find my list because hourly work of different kinds, even looking at substitute coverage. Can we change some of our approach to professional learning where we're not pulling teachers out of the classroom as much, therefore reducing our need for substitute teachers? How do we work with HR to really incentivize folks, for attendance to be, at a higher level where we're not having to rely on substitutes? So what are those kinds of operational, like slow bleed areas that if we got a little bit tighter control on, we could gain back some funding to continue to sustain the program? We also then looked at consulting and contract services. A lot of us across the departments contract out for different types of services to supplement the work that we do, but are there ways to reduce or to go without for a year or so? So that's what we did, and you're going to hear some reductions in facilities. We recently, the board knows, a year or two back, we had our building conditions survey where all of our facilities, top to bottom, were reviewed. So, things like our roofing consultant and our masonry consultant, we've taken them out of the budget for this year because we just had a thorough assessment 2 years ago. We have building projects. We can do without that for a little while temporarily so that, again, we're not impacting things close to the classroom. Consulting services for communications department, for my own department, for executive coaching type work. In PPS realm, Ms. Holt has looked for, are there ways from the various contract providers that she can, that she works with, can she reduce some of that, still provide service, but reduce some of that? Curriculum is looking at ways, how do we bring more of the training in-house instead of bringing in outside people to do the training? Even areas like our security staffing, where, and I know the board knows we have in-district security staff as well as contracted Briger staff. So how do we shift that so we're using less of the higher cost outside and more of the internal? So those are the areas that we're looking at. How can we streamline and reduce the operational work in a way that continues to keep funds close to the classroom? Refinement in software and purchasing and licenses. That was another big area. Before the pandemic, we were always forwardly, a leader in instructional technologies. During the pandemic, we had to really add on a lot of titles, a lot of new services to make sure that we could provide the robust learning experiences in whether it was full online or remote. So what we did was we took the time to finally go through and really look at the analytics. What are people using? What is meeting our current need? And are there things that we can now sunset? So again, John Sabalos, Dr. Comerford, Dr. Short did a tremendous amount of work together to really strategically and critically look at those and eliminate a lot in the software area while still maintaining all that is important to the instructional program. And then finally, we still weren't there. So you do have to then eventually start to look across where the largest dollars come from in a budget, and that's your staffing and program costs. So as I said before, we did start obviously with retirements. So as you know, we had 3 teacher retirements this year. 2 were at the elementary level. As we looked at enrollment projections for next year, we were very thankful to find a win-win in that there were 2 places where we can reduce sections going from one grade level into the next, and those sections will still be within board guidelines. So that's what you will see when we look at staffing, is you're going to see 2 reductions at the elementary level, and that's from the attrition from the teachers who retired. The 3rd teacher retirement was a position that we could not eliminate. It was a choral teacher at the secondary campus, so that is being filled. But that's a good example where when we have retirements or vacant positions and we do fill them, often we still get what we call breakage. So if someone retires, a senior teacher, or we have had some clerical retirements as well. We've got principal retirement. They retire at a higher salary point. Often the replacement will come at a lower salary point, so you get breakage on that. The difference between the salaries, that helps us with budget as well. So we're not filling the 2 retirements. We're getting breakage on several retirement positions. We have asked the secondary campus as they move through the scheduling process to try to reduce by 5 overages is what we call them. It's a 1.0 in staffing, but every class that meets every day all year is considered 0.2 of a teacher's work. So it's one class is a 0.2 full-time equivalent. So when a teacher picks up a 6th class above their 5th class, we call it an overage or a 6-period assignment. So what we've asked the secondary campus across the campus to do is just to find 5 of those that we can reduce in the coming year. without impacting program to the greatest degree possible. So we're still in the early stages there. We've got a staffing meeting next Monday to look at what these projections based on current requests are. But that process will take us easily in through April before we can really fine tune and determine where those will come. And again, we do our best to minimize the impact on student program when we do that. Additionally, in looking programmatically, when it comes to intervention services, again, I keep going back to our Tri-States visit and MTSS. We are looking critically at intervention services, and what this budget proposes is shifting some of how we're providing those interventions at the elementary level, meaning in some cases we've had students going to an interventionist for things that are considered really tier 1 that could really be done by teachers in the classroom. So we are proposing a reduction there, but not a reduction in service, just a reduction in staffing where the service would still occur, but it would occur differently. So what we're going to be doing we currently have 8, with the remaining 7 that are in the budget. We are going to be looking systemically across the district, seeing what the data shows us, the spring data about student needs, and then allocating staffing across the elementaries to fill those needs, because students will still continue to get those needs. We just are looking to make it more systemic, more consistent, and make sure that those needs that can be delivered in the classroom are delivered in the classroom. So we feel confident that we are still going to be able to deliver a similar level of service. And then finally, 2 other reductions. We had a retirement custodial position. So same thing, it's through attrition. We're not going to be filling that, so we did not fund that position. We're not replacing that in the coming year. And we're seeing a program shift within special education. So the budget does show a reduction of a teaching assistant corresponding to that change in program. And again, early in the budget season, so a lot of this could change and shift depending on enrollment, depending on IEP needs. It's early in the annual review season as well. So, and the board knows this, a lot can change in the special education realm, and Tracy will be going through this with us tonight. So we make best guesses right now. And I should say the budget starts on a certain date, and then we start to do all the ins and outs from that point in time. So these are where we stand today. We'll continue to keep the board aware of changes that happen as we go through the process. But those are some of the challenging things that we really needed to do this year to be able to close that $2 million gap and bring the board a balanced budget. So the budget itself that's being proposed tonight is $99,092,000 budget, 2.91% year-to-year increase in that budget, and the proposed tax-compliant tax levy increase is 3.72%. The operating budget, 2.28 of that comes from the operating budget itself. You can see that's much more similar to the tax cap restriction. We're in line with that. And then there's 1.44% that comes from capital exclusions, and those are all the things related to capital. They're outside of the tax cap. So finally, what does this mean to the homeowner? This is always a slide that our community is very interested in. We did adjust the home values and the percentages based on updated information. So kind of the bookends of it, some examples, and folks can hopefully get a general sense of where they lay their home may be and their situation may be. The middle example is the average home assessed value in Pelham, and this is updated based on this year. So home valued at just over $1.2 million. If your assessment changed 3% or 4.7% or 9%, those are the different columns, you can see then what the impact would be. So a home valued at just over $1.2 million in assessment value, this tax increase, if your assessment changed 3%, that would be a $358 increase estimated. If it was a 4.7% increase, that would be an increase of $692. And if you had a 9% change in your assessed value for that same home, you would be looking at about just over $1,500 increase because of this budget. If you have a lower valued home, then there's the corresponding lower amount, and then a higher valued home, the same. And again, these are estimates. We know that there's certainly impacts of the homestead versus non-homestead as well. So this is not an exact science, but this is a ballpark to give you a sense of what this means from a financial perspective. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the capable hands of my colleague, Mr. Ricky, to get into the detail.
Thank you and good evening. And on that prior slide, that's found on page A19 in the budget book. So if you want, I know it was a little bit harder to look at the there's a lot of detail on that screen. So if the board or the public, as you think of those things later, that document is in that area. So thank you for being here this evening, giving me the opportunity to talk about the budget. When we look at our budget, we really have to look at the two parts of the budget. And everybody really only thinks about the spending part, but also we have to raise the money for those funds to spend. So first, I'd like to take the opportunity to kind of go over our revenue and the other financing sources related to funding this proposed budget. We've got a couple of different categories as we look at in the revenue and the other financing sources. Kind of, as no one, it's not a surprise to anybody, the largest category of financing or revenue for the district's budget is property taxes, which make up just under 78% of the budget. Second largest category is state aid. Fortunately, we have seen that category grow over the last few years. When I started here about 9 years ago, we were below 10% of the budget for that particular number. And over the years, we've gradually seen the state increase the funding and bring us up to full funding. So we're pretty fortunate that we've seen that increase, although certainly it still kind of pales in comparison to property taxes. The other things that we have here are miscellaneous receipts, and Dr. Champ touched on that a little bit earlier today. Those things kind of make up our interest income, payments for services such as tuition. Dr. Champ mentioned the properties that fall within the Bronx, for which we build New York City. Also, we have properties that kind of rest between New Rochelle and between Pelham. So when we have those properties, those families whose students, they have a choice of which district to attend. If they attend Pelham, we then bill, and we receive those tax dollars back for educational purposes from those properties. So that's part of what we do in the business office as we look up, or as we look to kind of look at our different revenue sources. And then we've got our appropriation of fund balances, as you see, which make up about 4% of the budget. And you think of fund balances, you'll see a couple of different categories here. But really, if you think about it, it's kind of like a savings account that one would have. Just looking at the information a little bit different. Obviously, big green is property taxes, just at 77.8%, and then blue is state aid. The others are the two categories that I just mentioned: the miscellaneous receipts and fund balance. So property taxes, how do we get to that point? Again, as Dr. Champ mentioned, in 2011, New York State passed the law for the property tax. It was first enacted in 2012. You can tell I've been taking a class on the property tax. And since that time, the last 14 years, we've been beholden to that. Really comes up there's two different parts about the property tax as you look at it. As you look at the graph on the right, you have the top part talks about the operating budget, which is really kind of the things, the day in and the day out things that you need to operate the school, your staff, your lights, your materials and supplies, things such as that. And then we have exclusions which fall outside of the tax cap, such as capital exclusions, which would be debt payments. And then in other circumstances, when certain expenses grow at a certain rate that are specified in the law, there are certain exclusions. They don't really take effect in this year's budget. So as we look at our budget this year, CPI is recorded by the Office of State Comptrollers, 2.63%. So we're capped at 2%. Then there's a growth factor applied by the state of 0.35%, which allowed an allowable tax cap increase of 2.28%. When you add the expenses related to the exclusions of 1.44%, that's how we get to the compounded 3.72% that is in this. That makes up this proposed tax increase. Again, here are the challenges that we talk about. The tax cap, it deals with the lower of 2% or the CPI. So when we're above 2%, there's a challenge right there. If you're below 2%, you're kind of working with CPI at that point. And historically, we've been in both places over the time of over the tax cap. Many communities, many organizations, public organizations that are bound to the tax cap have been working through this process, and and they've all found themselves at different points in time, depending on their budget structures and what's impacting them, those individual organizations, to have to pierce that tax cap. So we've seen that from many neighboring. I think in Pelham we've seen it in the municipalities, but we've also seen it in surrounding school districts throughout the Westchester, Putnam, Rockland area as well. Not originally, but now more frequently, we're hearing more of it now. And over the next few weeks, months, we're going to hear about that too, surrounding school districts in the area. Your taxes are based upon your assessed valuation, and here you have 3 different lines. So if we just focus on the last grouping of lines on the right-hand side, that's the 26-27 homes, the assessed valuation for the 26-27 budget. The tallest line is the total of all of the assessed values of all properties that fall within the Pelham School District. The second tallest line makes up the residential properties or homestead properties. And that, in total, that's about 82% of the total assessed values of all properties within the district. And then the smaller line on the bottom that you see, that the short little one all the way to the right on the bottom, are what you would call your non-homestead properties. And you would kind of think of that as your commercial properties. So as we look at the assessed values, this is kind of the pie of payers of your taxes and how it's made and how that's made up. Our state aid, as I mentioned before, over the years we've grown from less than 10% of the total budget to just over 14% of our state aid. We receive state aid in many different buckets. The largest one is our foundation aid. We had a nice increase year to year, about 6.4%, or about $562,000. We did see a reduction in our building aid, which was not unexpected. These are things that are planned because they kind of match up with our debt service, and these are something that we talked about last year. And then we have follow-up aid. We talk about BOCES aid, and that has to do with throughout the year we receive services from BOCES, which is a cooperative educational service that the district is a part of. As an incentive to participate in this cooperative program, the state provides revenue, expense-based revenue, almost as a reward, and you receive that the following year. So as you can see, that makes up just under about just over $2 million of that aid that we receive from the state. So we've got a section in our budget book regarding BOCES, and you'll be able to see kind of all the services that we work through BOCES, a lot of IT-related services, a lot of special education-related services, vocational education services, kind of services that are difficult for one district to provide, but collectively, it's a great organization for many school districts to work through and share those services. So you see BOCES makes up a nice component of our state aid. We receive transportation aid. Again, as a non-busing district, we still do have busing. We are required to transport Pelham students that attend school, private school out of district, up to a radius of 15 miles. So there's an expense to that. By the way, there is an application process. Chris reminded me this evening, the deadline is April 1st. So for those who are planning on submitting that application, please submit it by April 1st. And again, we do receive some transportation aid from the state with that. And then we have smaller aids for instructional materials and high tax aid. The high tax aid number hasn't changed in over a decade. It's always been $116,000, $596. I'm grateful that it has never gone down. I'm not quite sure. I don't think anybody at the state just wants to touch it at this point, so they just kind of roll it every year. But all in all, we have, that makes up about $14 million of our budget, and a net increase of $385,000 year to year.
Jim,
Hi.
question about the aid.
Yeah.
Are all of
Yes.
these categories, I know BOCES aid, BOCES are, sorry, facing the other way to ask you. For the aid that's reimbursable, are all of these, not all of these categories are reimbursable aids, but like building, BOCES aid, transportation aid, or two that you specifically said were like revenue generators?
They're kind of set, they're based upon some
Are they
expenditures.
reimbursable? Like, so if the expense occurs in year one, that expense is reimbursed in year two?
Correct. We would see that in the following year.
What other categories would that qualify for?
Well, the largest categories would be your BOCES aid. I mean, your building aid is certainly based on approved building projects and the debt schedule that the state has a debt schedule, and what our available aid is, and then they roll that aid out based on their schedule. And then we have transportation aid. We also have some aid for books. We have to make sure we maximize those dollars every year. I talked a little bit about miscellaneous receipts. I talked about tuition. Also in that line, we have interest earnings. Again, our preliminary budget, we're looking at interest earnings of about $1 million for For a look back at history, about 5 years ago or less, that was about $15,000 a year. So as interest rates have gone up, we've certainly been the beneficiary of that. As we've seen, the interest rates has settled a little bit, and they're kind of working their way back down. It's contracting a little bit, but at this point in time, we're forecasting $1 million for next year. And then sales tax, again, that was at one point in time, not too long ago, that was under $1 million, and the forecast about $1.4 million. So same as prior year. And then we have our use of fund balance and reserves. And if you think of your fund balance, think of kind of what's in your savings account. And we've got 4 different lines here, and just think of that. You could, for simplicity's sake, you can think of this as kind of 4 different accounts that you have, 4 different savings accounts. So with that, we're proposing using $4 million, or making $4 million available to balance the budget as an appropriation to balance that budget. The largest category makes up our debt service fund, so that part is actually applied to the exclusion part of our tax cap calculation. But again, and those are leftover monies from prior capital projects. So at the end of June 30th, that had a balance of about $5.5 million. And the whole intent is to use those monies strategically with the capital plan that we're in right now as well, to kind of smooth out any of those peaks and valleys of it bringing on debt.
And I would just add one piece to this. This allocation of fund balance and reserves is basically the same as the current budget, with the one difference being a little bit less from the debt service fund being applied.
Yes. And again, just some things to think about when we look at our fund balance. So they do guard against unexpected expenses when things go up really fast. Recommended use is for one-time expenses, which the district has done in the past for things such as the Pelham middle school HVAC replacements, rooftop unit replacements, playgrounds, property acquisitions. Again, one-time strategic use of those dollars. And also and those monies have been used to help keep the tax increases lower. And just even in this year's budget alone, absent the use of that $1.8 million that Dr. Champ just mentioned, we could actually have a tax cap compliant tax levy increase of 6.21%. That is not what's being proposed this evening. But that just is, we're just sharing this to kind of give you an indication that the monies are being put to use in an effort to make sure that the year-to-year tax increase is not something like 6.2%. But some things you have to be careful about. Since it is you kind of think of it as your savings account, you want to be careful not to use those monies regularly, because when you go out to borrow money, we're rated every year based on our credit. Well, we're rated when we go out to borrow money for our credit worthiness. And they look at, the credit rating agency looks at things like your fund balance and your use of fund balance and the level of your fund balance. So we want to be careful, because they want to make sure that we're credit worthy and we're a good credit risk, and having multiple years of drawdowns can have an impact on your credit ratings. So it's a matter of finding that balance. Part of that is working with the finance committee, working with our financial advisors to make sure we find that proper balance.
On that point there, Jim, I don't recall a year in which we didn't pull the debt service fund lever. I mean, it's a fairly regular regular tactic. So this is not new.
It's not new, and I would say really it's been a lever that's been pulled since the Hutchinson bond of 2017.
And our current credit rating is AAA.
S&P AAA.
S&P AAA. So do we have concern about?
I would have concern if we had regular drawdowns of fund balance. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, a good credit rating saves the community money as well, because
Right.
you receive better borrowing terms.
When we borrow for the bond, yeah.
But are you not, when you say you would have concerns if we had a regular drawdown of fund balance, are you not including the debt service fund in that?
The debt service fund kind of falls into a unique area, because if you needed to raise the monies, say we didn't have the debt service fund and you had to raise those monies could be raised out. They'd have to be voted on, but they wouldn't be bound. They'd be used to fund your debt service, which would be part of the exclusion. So they wouldn't be bound to the tax cap 2% that you have. So it could be higher, but of course, as we showed you before, if we didn't use it, you could have a tax cap compliant increase of 6.21%, which we realize is not a tax levy increase that's going to be moved forward. So it's making sure you find that right balance.
And, sorry,
Yeah.
if I may.
That's fine.
I'll also say that when you look at the drawdowns we have had from fund balance for HVAC, for playground, for buying Clay's house, I mean, these are legitimate strategic decisions we made. They're not like acts of financial distress.
That would be correct.
So.
And those are things when you meet with the credit agencies and they look at your credit use, these are things that you share with them, and those are not recurring items when you think of those. Kind of think of it as a one-time revenue source, because it's kind of out of your bank account and you don't have it anymore. You don't want to use it to fund those recurring expenses. The things that we have here, like Mr. Treve said, those aren't recurring items. So here's the other part of our budget, the expense budget. A lot more lines than our revenue budget, but
Smaller fund.
and a bit of an eye chart. I'm sorry for those folks here, but this is all in our budget book. And no surprise again, 78% of our budget makes up of salaries and employee benefits. And again, as a people business, this is kind of where this is not a surprise, or where you would expect to see those costs. And then you see the variances year to year as we go through the chart. Just interfund transfers, which are debt service, you see that's kind of down 8.2% year to year. We talked about some retirement of that debt. And then we can go through each of these categories, but again, through the budget process, we'll go through each of these, but you kind of see the variance year to year and where they make up the total expense of the budget. If we sum it up, these are kind of the categories that drive the budget. These budget-to-budget changes, your salaries and benefits are about $1.5 million, or 55% of the increase. Your BOCES expenses are about $500,000. Again, those are increases in tuitions and services for special education students, and some decreases related to educational software and shift in some PD. We got an increase of about $444,000 in contracted services. Some of that's related to transportation services, special education services, liability insurance, and contracted security staffing. And then about $379,000 for debt service, for bond anticipation note, and anticipated reduction, of course, that we mentioned in the debt service on existing bonds. So that makes up the $2.8 million year-to-year budget variance that we see. Going to look at the expense budget. We had 3 charts. We pared it down to 2 charts this year. We really tried to streamline this presentation. Again, as we look at it, it's about 70, on this chart it shows 75% of our budget is dedicated directly to instructional program, 16% of it to capital, and then 9.3% to administrative expenses. And that's just important to note, because we can't exceed 10% on that number, and we don't. So we fall within that allowable range. This is a 3-component category. It's just the state reporting category. When we looked at it by object code, I think we're finding a lot of the same things. 52% of the budget is salaries, 22.8% is benefits. So again, you're looking at about 74, 75% just of employee salaries and benefits. And then the rest of it, again, you're looking at BOCES, textbooks, material supplies, and contractual and interfund transfers. We kept the third one in. It made its way back in.
Bummer.
All right. And here's another way to look at it. Again, it's 57% of it is our instruction. We'll look at benefits again, still 22.8%. And again, we look at pupil transportation. As a non-busing district, pupil transportation still makes up about 2.6% of our budget, and general support 10.6%. I thought we'd agree to take that one out. Side by side, here we look at some of the changes year to year. On the left-hand side, you see our revenue changes year to year. So we've got a property taxes increase of $2.7 million. Our state and federal aid increase of $385,000. Remember, that's a net number when you take all the increases and decreases on that state aid number. Our miscellaneous receipts are up about 25,000, and our appropriation of debt service fund is, we're down $375,000. That nets out to $2.8 million. On the revenue side, our salaries are up $1.15 million. BOCES is up just under $500,000. Our contractual line, as I mentioned before, your insurance, transportation, special education related services, and contracted security, $443,000. Debt service, employee benefits. Again, I think a little bit earlier we talked about health insurance being a driver, employee benefits. So that there's more to the employee benefits line than just health insurance. We have pension expenses, so the net expense went up $366,000. That's where we find the year-to-year variance on expenditures, $2.8 million. So we have a balanced budget. We went up on expenditures, $2.8 million. We're up on revenue, $2.8 million.
And Jim, that increase in the salaries line of 1.15,
Yes.
if we hadn't done the things, or if we weren't doing the things that Dr. Champ summarized in her intro, things like not automatically replacing retirees, dialing back on overtime, that's a laundry list of things, that number would be significantly bigger.
Probably $500,000,
Right.
at least $500,000 higher.
Yeah.
Just getting back to where we are, the total appropriation for this budget is $99,092,000, a budget-to-budget increase of 2.91%, with the projected allowable tax levy increase of 3.72%, and that's where we stand right now. There's a lot of meetings coming up. We're just at the top of the list right now. So, our first line-by-line meeting, which will end with the school budget vote on March the 19th.
And I think with that,
Thank you. May the 19th. Wishful thinking.
so Jim, if you can just go to one more slide as you're walking back,
Thank
we'll
you.
let you come back to your seat for discussion. So really just key takeaways, and thank you, Jim, for that detailed. I would feel like Jim and I could hopefully make a good pair. He speaks the language that the finance people speak, and I hope I speak layman terms, but hopefully between one of the two of us, it does make sense and it resonates. But there are key takeaways that we really want folks to walk away with tonight, is that we continue to offer an amazing program. Our educational programs are robust, they're broad, and we're producing outstanding outcomes for our students. There are definite fiscal headwinds and rising costs that are creating challenges to us continuing to do that. We're trying to be as strategic as possible, but that pressure really is very real as we try to work to continue to provide those programs. With this budget that we put before you, as difficult as some of these decisions were to arrive at, we do believe that it continues to provide the high-quality education, 'cause it does what the board asked us to do. Provide the high-quality, robust education, support special education, target needs and resources where they belong. So we're continuing to meet the needs of all students, not only special education, but all students, continuing to offer the extracurricular programs, and Joe is going to give us some insight on that tonight as well, and certainly to continue to support the forward progress on our capital, continuing to maintain our current facilities and moving forward on our capital improvements. So with that, we certainly open it up to the board for any questions on the general overview before we pass things off to Tracy to start our PPS review tonight.
Well, I'll just say that, I've been speaking with board other, on West Putt, the words are apparently really hard for me today. It's a challenge, but I've been speaking with other colleagues at West Putt. We're all sort of starting our budget processes now, and from the conversations I've been having with them, we're all talking about the same sort of things in our budget, seeing increases across the same areas, talking about, challenges and balancing. So I think that, we are not in a much different place, just like you guys said in your presentations, from many of our, other districts in the same area. And so this will be a very thorough process that we'll go through. But a lot of districts are going to be having the same conversation.
Thank you.
So it's good not to be the only one.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm always like amazed at like sort of those top line numbers around the level of our performance, the athletics, the increasing, special education work, and it's just, it's almost like it feels like he did a little magic here, right, to like keep us where we are. So my question, I guess, is, what are you most like? What are there watch outs here, right? Like this is what I'm kind of concerned about. This is where we might, where we're gonna struggle this year, or like where, like I just be really curious around how you're thinking about this.
Yeah,
for
no,
next
that's
year.
a great question. Kind of what are the downstream risks of, that we're thinking about? Some of the cuts that we made, I think, are things, and I may have said this when we talked about some of the contractual services, for example. They're things that will be fine in the short term, but if they were persist long term, then we could see, there could be some problematic things around them. I think that's probably my first thought. I do think each year it's going to get tighter and tighter under the
Yeah.
cap. I think that's really the problem is, we last year, I'm sure you remember, we had 13 retirements, teacher retirements, and we didn't replace many of those. And if not for that move last year, we would be in a much more difficult situation right now.
Yeah.
And it's almost, those same not filling retirements is not going to, you can only do that so many, it's not
Yeah,
going to be there
yeah,
much longer,
no.
we really, I think, are at a point where we feel programmatically, and from a staffing perspective in particular, that we're as slim as we
We're
can
like
get.
hitting the mark. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wonder, we're going to go through this process, right? This year is this year. And when we think about that, right, because we've talked a lot about that, right? Like this is what it means, like this is what we can do this year, but next year, the year after that, and looking at it, I'm sure you've done this, and Jim, you probably have this like in your mind, but just even that 2-3 year, again, we want to stay focused on this, getting this over the finish line, but it would be really great visibility to just sort of get some like, kind of outlook around a lot of variables, but, being prepared, I think, as a community of like what the next 2 to 3 years could look like for us.
I mean, the impression I get is Catherine's right. We're not unique in the pressures that we are feeling. The costs are increasing faster than our revenues, and when many other districts are feeling that pain, and you have two choices. You either bust the tax
Pierce.
cap,
Yeah.
or you try and tighten your belt and see if you can continue to, operate effectively, but through spending less money. And we as a board have chosen to do the latter, and not least because I think we've already asked quite a lot of the community in the form of the bond that was just voted on. And so I think we collectively are, going down the belt tightening route. And I think the sense I get is we're sort of reaching the limit of where that belt tightening what it can achieve without having a material impact on the quality of education.
I totally agree. And I guess it was a roundabout way of preparing us for like what is down the road, because it looks like to me, like, again, it feels like a little bit of a magic hat, right? Like we've been able to do these things, but we won't be able to continue to do them without really impacting the quality of the education. And so it's on my mind a lot. And so just being able to kind of see what that looks like over the next couple of years early, I think would help the community and us to just know what's coming down. Yeah.
Yeah. Jim, was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I mean, I think of the technical aspects, and I think as we work through this, I think there's an easy temptation to say, okay, let's just use a little more fund balance. Let's try to make things work, because things are hard and nobody wants to make reductions. And then at the same time, we have to think about those long range items, whether it's the borrowing, and if is there a big variance between AAA and one step below that? Do we want to look at that? Do we want to look at other reductions or piercing or doing something like that? We go through the long-range plan process every year. We look at our expenses, we make those assumptions, we revisit those long-range plans every year. And we look a lot like other districts.
Yeah.
It's the process, and then things change. And we participate in a pension plan, which is market-based, performance-based, which, you know, that can change year to year, and it rolls on a 5-year rolling average. We talked about interest income. A few years back, it was less, it was de minimis. Now it's about $1 million. I mean, that makes a big difference. So there's always ins and outs that you have to work with, and as Dr. Chant mentioned, we work the process, we work the problem, we will look at those things that are most valuable as a district, that we value the most. We have a demanding community and people that are expecting a service, and we want to be able to provide that service to all of our students. And it's just working through that process. Your budget is your policy document, really, and that's how you execute your policy.
Just to confirm, with respect to borrowing for the new capital improvement bond, this proposed budget includes short-term borrowing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think we've got 2 or 3 years of short-term borrowing before we go out for the long bonds.
I guess, and Jim, then to a follow-up question on Jackie's, if we draw on our reserves and have less in reserves, that impacts our credit rating. So it could take us from a AAA.
It could.
It
Yeah.
could.
And
if
then
you-
that would impact us when,
The interest rate, yeah.
while we're moving forward and executing our, capital bond project and drawing, we're going to be borrowing a lot on that. So then that's something that would impact us, have long-term impact over the course of this bond project. Got it.
It's about having that awareness. I think,
Right.
again, the district has always used a portion of fund balance to balance the budget. So it's not it's, as Mr. Treve said, it's nothing new.
Right.
And it's just finding that right balance.
But you're careful
because-
in not using so much that it would take us
Correct.
out
Yeah,
of
What
that.
was Jim's middle name?
No, I'm not questioning that you're not careful. I'm asking these questions so I can I'm not questioning you.
I understand that. No,
Caution. I'm
caution is a good word. It's a
I
good middle
am-
name for my job.
But I
I'm
think
asking for myself just so I understand how all of the pieces fit
Yes.
together. Because I thought I heard you say that using a large amount of our reserves would
If-
impact our credit rating, which then could have impact on our.
A continual and regular
That was for
drawdown
me,
for
not for you,
recurring
Jim, but-
expenses
Yeah.
is not recommended.
Right, but in the recent past, the board has asked for these one-time uses of fund balance for playgrounds and HVAC and that
Right.
type of thing.
Right.
That does not impact.
No, those are not
Yeah.
regular nor
Yeah, you
recurring
kind of
types
explain
Yeah.
of
that. You
expenses.
explain that to the rating agency, and they.
I think what you don't want to be doing is dipping into the savings account to pay for your day-to-day.
operations, I was
groceries.
going to say, that's where
Yeah,
you get
no.
into, that's where we would get into trouble. I mean, yeah.
And I guess the one observation that I would make about the budget, and I sort of appreciate the work that Jim and the team and the rest of the administrative team have put into and thought that they've put into this budget. I mean, one of those slides showed the change in operating expenses, and it's lower than CPI, which means, net we're spending at a rate that's lower than, the cost of doing business for everyone. So I think there's real belt tightening going on, and still trying to maintain the same program. So I think that's, there's a lot of work to try and make that happen. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's the beginning of many meetings, and we're going to keep a list of things as things change, and as the board has questions, and if you think about things before or after, business office is willing to meet with you if you'd like to go over certain things, as we do every year. We want to be able to provide that information to you.
I really appreciate that because I do take you up on that offer of meeting, and it's very helpful meeting with Jim
Oh,
and the team.
One last question. This proposed budget, we were talking about tightening our belts, but there's still contingency. Like, for example, if there was a there needed to be a teacher hire or.
Yeah, we've still maintained the 2% contingency, which is our general practice. So yeah, when we get to Dr. Fitzgerald's section, you'll see there is still contingent staffing in there. We've generally used it in the last couple of years because we've gotten tighter and tighter on our budgeting. And actually, Jim and Jackie, we've talked some even in our planning about, often the term they used was there's some soft contingency. There's areas often in the budget you don't get in the past we may have, I will use the example of charter tuitions. I think we've only ever had one, maybe two students ever that have attended charter schools, so we have to budget for the tuition for charter schools. So I think we had originally been looking at continuing that 2 tuitions in the budget, but trying to close this $2 million gap, trying to maintain program. We're going to take out that one. We're going to budget for the one that we know. So that maybe wouldn't have been considered within the contingency lines that the board is fully aware of because we had a we reasonably thought that could have been used. But it's those kinds of soft contingencies that, to talk about the tightening of the belt, those things really have, out of this budget, those things have really been removed.
Okay.
So we're down to, there still is 2% contingency, to your point, but it's a pretty hard contingency now compared to the softer, a little bit more flexible version that we had in the past. So shall we go to PPS?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. After all that good news.
So thank you for the opportunity to present the budget to you this evening. You heard special education mentioned there a couple of times, so you'll have an opportunity to hear some of the detail involved. You are in tab 2 of the budget book, starting on page C15. I gave you an overview of what's encompassed in the Pupil Personnel Services program. So the Office of Pupil Personnel Services encompasses K-12 services for every student, both general and special education, in the areas of academics, social emotional support, interventions, and the PPS department includes school counselors, so that's Mr. Farrell's department, special education teachers and staff, our school psychologists, our school social workers, our related service providers, that's our speech therapist, physical therapist, occupational therapist, our school nurses, the district medical director, and administrators of these programs and departments. Before I move forward, I do need to thank Mr. Farrell, who helped prepare his portion of the budget this evening, and does a wonderful job with his department. And of course, I know Dr. Champ mentioned, but Dr. Ribeiro and Mr. Lau, who are the most incredible collaborators and thought partners for me in this process. They know their students, they know their families, they know their teachers, they know their programs, which makes it incredibly helpful when we sit down and try to think about how to project, how to be efficient, and how to make it all work. So I can't thank them enough for everything they do. It's not easy to be on the front line of special education sometime, and I appreciate all their hard work. Again, I mentioned nursing, so we know we have nurses in all of our buildings. They're the core of the medical support and the safety and health and welfare of our students. We do have numbers of students that have some medical conditions, so we're very thankful to have a nurse in each building. Again, we mentioned the school counseling department. We have 3 middle school counselors, 5 high school counselors, along with Mr. Farrell, who carries also a caseload of students as the director of counseling. They also support the counseling in the plan for our elementary students. So they will go down to the elementary and do what's required in terms of any counseling standards at the elementary level. In terms of our school psychologists and social workers, I think we've discussed over the years that many of our students have increased social emotional needs, so we're very fortunate to have the support staff that we have in terms of our psychologists and social workers. knowing as well that we maintain a middle school and high school therapeutic support program, which is another way we're able to keep a number of students in district and reduce out-of-district costs. In terms of special education and 504, special education is driven by student need and the regulations that govern us to provide a free and appropriate public education. So we have to follow the law. So when an IEP is written and there are programs and services on it, we have to follow that. It's a legal document. We need to maintain compliance. Right now, I think as Mr. Ricky mentioned, this budget is an estimate of what we know. We're just starting our annual review season. So Dr. Ribeiro, Greg, and I start talking about this in December. Mr. Lau starts rolling over sections and numbers. Lauren takes out her crystal ball and looks at the CPSE students coming in, and we try to figure out where everybody's going and put the puzzle pieces together. But this can change. But we need to be responsive, again, to the legal component of these IEPs and the programming. Some of the things that are, drive some of the costs in our world is some of the increases that we're seeing in these areas. So, for example, in the last 5 years, just in CSE, we've seen a 32% increase in students that are classified. In 504s, while that doesn't drive programs, it can drive related services, because if we have a student that is legally blind or colorblind and need vision consultation services, or we have a student with a 504 for anxiety or depression and may need psychology consultation, that drives need, that drives cost. So 504 itself in the last 5 years has increased 94%.
And also just the evaluation of them, of 504s, regardless of the outcome, is a
yeah. Sometimes
big
we
burden, right?
evaluate CSE. We have to evaluate referrals, and of course our CPSE is growing. So that's grown 39% in the last 5 years. So I think, as Ms. Cohen said, this is trends that is being seen in our neighbors and our colleagues across the county and the state. And while we're seeing increases, thankfully, we're not increasing at the rate that the county and the state is increasing. We continue to be below that, and I think that speaks to the quality of our general education programming and our interventions. They're not, increasing at the rates the county and the state is, but we're still seeing increases nonetheless. Again, increased CPSE. This year we have 36 students transitioning in from CPSE to CSE in kindergarten. Some may, be declassified in that process, but quite a number of them do need programming. And as Dr. Champ indicated, based on the need, we will need to open an ICT class in kindergarten next year. And again, that's based on those student needs. We've also seen increased needs in some of our high intensity need kids. Last year, we opened up another 812 program. And as we look at the numbers in their program, we are reaching close to the limits. So we're watching that closely. And to your point, trying to make projections and read the tea leaves to the best we can. But the headwinds are showing us that the students that are entering are intensive needs kids and needs these smaller programs. In addition, Pelham is a place that attracts people for the quality of their education, their general education, and their special education. So we do see students who are moving in and also are high needs students and are coming to Pelham and looking to us because we have such quality programming in these areas. And then in terms of our out-of-district students, while our goal is always to keep students in district and teach them in the least restrictive environment, there are students that we have based on medical needs, intense cognitive needs, or maybe emotional behavioral needs that we cannot service in district, and we do need to look for out-of-district programs. And we'll talk a little bit about that when I get to the tuition lines. So if you turn now to page C19, where we really get into the details. So if you look at the teaching assistant salaries, again, these are salaries, they're contractual, and they're based on programmatic needs. We did try to tighten the budget this year, as Dr. Champ indicated, with a reduction, but, you know, some of the needs in these areas we can't get around, like our special classes have teaching assistants assigned to them. The next line, again, is salary for the PPS administrators. That's increases there are driven by contractual costs. The next line is teacher salaries K-5. Again, the increase you will see there reflects the contractual increases and again the ICT teacher at K level. The next line, CSE meeting supports, that's a small number. We try to get all of our meetings in by the end of the school year. At the last budget, I told you we have just about under 700 meetings that we chair between CPSC, CSE, and 504. But however, if a referral comes in at the end of the year, and based on compliance deadlines, there may be a need to hold meetings over the summer. That's rare. We try to, you know, keep that to a low number, so that's small. The next line is our speech therapist salaries. We have 5 speech therapists that are salaried employees. Again, those increases are due to contractual increases. Our occupational therapists we have 2 in district. The physical therapist you're going to actually see in the next line because that's a contract provider. That's not a salaried employee. Hearing impaired, again, we had a retiree a couple of years ago, and that service moved to a contractual service, so that is why that line is zeroed out. Our clerical assistant salaries, again, it's the changes are due to some contractual increases and some changes in where our clericals moved. And then the last line also are our hourly monitors. We are budgeting for 28 monitors with 2 contingent positions this year. Again, that's IEP-driven costs and program-driven costs. And thankfully, we carry 2 contingents because we have move-ins. We had several move-ins this year that came to us with IEPs that had monitors on them. So, you know, we try to plan for that as best as we can. Moving on to page C20. I just want to get there too. That first line is an equipment line. Last year we had a big expense in that based on some equipment we needed to buy in terms of medical needs for a student. We don't expect the budget to be that large for next year, but what's in this equipment line is iPads for our nonverbal students who need communication devices. It's hearing equipment for our students who are hearing impaired, FM systems. So that's what's in the equipment line. Then if you go to the next line, the contractual line, again, this is where you're going to see some of the increases. Some of that, again, is because of the move over that we had in our contractual hearing services. We use an agency for that now. You'll see also our physical therapist is a contractor. We had a physical therapist that was working in the district for 15 years. She retired last year. And she was hired under CSEA. The physical therapist we hired now, we went out through RFP, so there was rate changes and, you know, increases that we didn't see when we had the person who was with us for 15 years under CSEA. But again, we're seeing increases because of some of the special class programmatic needs and the intensity of the related services that those students need. What's also in the contractual line is if we need assistive technology evaluations, psychiatric evaluations, neuropsychological evaluations, This year also, again, based on increased related service needs, when we opened the 812 class at Hutch last year, we had an increase for speech and language services that couldn't be absorbed by one person there, so we had to add some more support there. We also have in here some subscriptions, CPI, which is that's the training that we do for crisis prevention intervention. So that's all baked into the contractual line. But I'd say the biggest increases we're seeing is because of the related services that we've had to supplement with agency and not hiring more FTE, which would come with health insurance and benefits. So we're going to watch that at some point. If it makes more sense to hire FTEs than going with contractual services, we would do that. But right now, we're trying to keep the container from breaking by doing it this way. The next line is home and hospital instruction. You'll see budgeted money here in my line and in Mr. Farrell's line. We kind of split it out a few years ago so we could better track trends and spending. But this is another hard one to track. Home and hospital services may be for students who are in long-term suspensions that we need to provide instruction for, and students who have physical needs, ailments, or things of that nature that require them to be out, broke a leg, mono, things like that. Supplies and materials, in that line, there's again a small increase. This is our specialized reading materials, testing materials for the psychologists, and the OTs, so that's what is in that line. And then we get down to the last three, and you need to sort of look at these all three together. So these are sort of our out-of-district tuition. And you'll see when students go out of district, they can go in one of three places. They can go to other public schools that have programs that we may not have. They can go to New York State-approved private programs, or they can go to BOCES programs. Again, just starting the process and not having annual reviews, there are some students, for example, that are aging out of private programs that I have to look for new programs for next year. So I put them in the BOCES line because BOCES is built to have and take our students, whereas some of the New York State approved schools, they don't have to. They look at their census, they look at their class needs. So you do see a big increase in the BOCES because some of the students that are in private and public, I moved to the BOCES line. So you'll see a decrease in some private and public, but increase in BOCES. What's also in that BOCES services line as well is some of our other related services that we have for kids in districts. So vision, hearing, our district behaviorist who supports our 812 programs, that's also baked into that line. And again, as those needs have increased, we've seen increased costs in that line. So
And Tracy, this
Yes.
is in those two lines, 472 and 490. You've got two. This is where you're kind of planning for what you don't know by having two contingent positions.
Correct.
For students who
exactly.
don't exist today but could easily exist in the
Yes.
next 12 months. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out.
And if you get three, then that's going to be a problem.
Then she goes and
Potentially, yeah.
sees Jackie.
Yeah.
I run away. Moving to C21, these are the 2810 codes. This is Mr. Farrell's codes that he helped to build this budget. So if you look at the first line, the 150, these are the salaries for the counselors and the director of counseling. And again, those increases are due to contractual increases. In addition, you see a stipend line. We do have built into the contract summer days for our school counselors. So there is money built in there for that. A lot happens at the end of the school year as region scores come in, as they are finalizing schedules, which requires some summer work. And again, that's contractual. And then you have in the clerical line, again, the clerical staffing for the counseling department. Then when you go to the contractual, then again, there's that home and hospital line that we talked about. In the next line, 2810-400, that is also, what's in that line is travel, conferences. We do send our counselors to, what is NISCA? NACAC, to keep up with there's a lot of acronyms, guys. So we do send our counselors, about 2 go each year, to stay on top of the trends, to network with the colleges that are out there, meet the admissions counselors. What's in that line also is SCORE. We moved away from Naviance, so now we have SCORE, which I think everyone really enjoys working with. It's been a good change for us. You'll also find in there for our SAT, ACT, and AP prep and testing supplies. That's baked into that line. Our students' assistance counselor is in that line. Some annual subscriptions, something called Parchment, when students come back and want transcripts. Yeah, that's in that line. And again, the memberships for NACAC, WIPA, NISCA, all for the counselors.
And I would just add on the student assistance counselor, we're continuing at the current level of service, which is, this is budgeted for 3 days a week as student assistance counselor. And then the student assistance services was gracious and sought out grant funding to start the new mental health clinic on the other 2 days. So we're planning to continue with that model.
The middle school line is a small line, again, for some just conference training and memberships. And then the last 2 lines are the materials and supplies for the high school and the middle school there. If you go to C22, now you're going into our medical. This is for medical costs. So the first line is our school nurses, and that is their salaries, again, with contractual increases. Equipment, we maintain a small budget for equipment. If a nurse needs a new audiometer, needs a new bed, needs new visual screening equipment, because it does get outdated, so that's just small, no changes there. The medical services in the 400 line, that is our district physician, that's Dr. Legueux. So that's that cost there. And then 2815-409, I'm gonna do my best to explain this one. Jim tutored me on this line. So by state law, we are required to pay for health-related services for Pelham students who go to private schools, Stepinac, Hackley, Iona, and there's costs that get generated and that get billed to us, and Jim kind of figures out the trend in that line to come up with that number.
That's accurate. Really, it's all those schools have nurses, and
We pay a portion.
the school districts in which those schools are located are required to provide health services to those districts. So we receive a pro rata share of the cost of providing those health-related services from those school districts. So Stepinac has a nurse. That nurse is an employee of the White Plains City School District. You take all the students at Stepinac, kind of divide out where they're from, which community they're from, and we receive our share based on the total population of those students and that cost.
Okay. And then if you look at the supplies and materials, this is something that we've just maintained very similar budgets for the past several years. And you'll see the larger numbers in the schools that have the larger students, Hutchinson, Prospect, and of course the high school. And then going to page C23.
Quick question on
Yes.
nurses. So there's a nurse in each building.
Correct.
And I think post-COVID we had a super nurse, like nurse
coordinator.
Nurse coordinator, but that's, we no longer have that.
No,
or-
we do, and
Oh,
that's
we
a
do.
stipend.
It's been,
I see.
yeah, it's been
Okay.
changed to a stipended approach, so one of the 6. One of their 6 receives a stipend for the additional coordinator.
Was
one.
it? I thought at one point it was a
We had a
full-time.
7th, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yes, you did our contact tracing.
That's right.
News.
Oh, God.
Yes. God bless her.
Bad old days.
Yeah. And then
That's a term.
the last page, C23, you see there's the psychologists, again, their salaries. Again, contractually, there is a small stipend for some summer work for them. And then you see for the social workers, we have the 2 full-time social workers, one in the middle school, one in the high school. And their salaries are there. And then we have the part-time social worker in the middle school. And that's reflected under the contractual. We don't pay benefits for her. And that is the end. Any questions for me?
And just really quick, each school has a psychologist, and there's an additional floating psychologist
At
That
the
is
elementary
at
level.
the
Yep.
elementary level. Okay.
And the secondary campuses both have 2 psychologists each.
Oh, okay.
Right, so the secondary campuses, they have 2 psychologists in each building, counselors, and and the social worker, 1.5 at the middle school and 1 at the high school.
Okay.
And can you just remind us of the role of the floating psychologist? How does that work?
Right, so the floating psychologist, so we had a position in the budget that was added. It was a school counselor, and then we changed it to be the psychologist, which is helpful because as 504 numbers have grown and CSE numbers have grown, the float psychologist will go where there's critical mass. So like, for example, in Hutchinson, which has the most special ed programs, Dr. Anderson cannot handle all of the meetings that have to be held in that building. So that's what that person does. And then again, the float psychologist will go to other buildings as needed to support needs, groups, depending on the need. And we'll look at the needs in each year because, again, we don't have a therapeutic support program at the elementary level. That was the program that Dr.
Used
Champ
to be at
mentioned
Prospect Hill.
phased out. So if we have a high need in a building, the float psychologist can go to that building as well to support.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, and part of that conversion, as Tracy said, from a counselor to psychologist, was to align with the increasing special education needs that we've been talking about throughout, throughout this.
Catherine, did you have a question? Because I cut you off.
It was about categorical, it was about an aid category, but I've highlighted it. I'm gonna flag it. I'll ask you at a different time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Lauren, Greg, Jean.
you.
Appreciate you being here tonight and all the work you did
you.
Thank
to
Good
put
night.
into this. Thank you. All right. I think with that, we'll invite Mr. Toombs. You know what, if you want, you've got a presentation. See, I was going to say, you're welcome to sit next to Tracy, too, if you,
Thank you.
since you have a presentation, I think it does make more sense to be at the podium.
All right, all set to begin?
Yes.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to come and discuss our athletics budget. So I'll start, we'll kind of dive into a little bit of a profile in athletics, and then we'll get into our line by line. Adding to this year's presentation, we'll also talk about the concept of incremental growth and also new program requests, because this is happening pretty frequently where the community is interested in growing our current offerings or adding new offerings. So just a little bit about how we assess that feasibility. Real quick, this is the org chart for the athletic department. We have one administrative assistant. We have a recently added scheduler, coordinator scheduler, a phys ed staff member who is released to help with the phys ed coordination, and then 3 seasonal individuals who have a stipend to help us supervise everything that we offer, because we are kind of spread all over the district with our offerings, so it's nice to have that extra set of eyes. So you'll see in the first handful of slides here, the intention is just to show the size and scope of athletics. You'll see it is a very large program. It is a very large department. The first 3 slides here are going to be our fall offerings. These are all the sports we offer and the levels that we offer them. Gives us 28 total fall offerings. You'll see beneath the trend data 2023, 2024, just to kind of see where we've been in the past as numbers change slightly. Winter, the season we're currently coming off of, 23 total offerings across all of our sports. And here's the spring. Again, these are kind of busy for the eye, but this can be shared if anybody wants to take a deeper look. And these are also posted on the website. The spring has 29 total offerings. Season total brings us to 80 total offerings. As Dr. Cham said earlier, this is large. This is on par with districts that have twice as many students in their classes, if not more. So we have a large student involvement, and I'll show you that here shortly. Here's the last 3 years of our enrollment. The first column there is the 7th and 8th grade, what we call modified sports. You'll see if you go down to the last row there, 2025-26 is current year. We have several weeks until the season begins, and we are already at 309. So we will be surpassing, I was checking the numbers before coming up here, we will be surpassing again last year's totals for middle school enrollment. Same thing, we're at 491 in that last row for 9 through 12 student enrollment in athletics. Registration is still open. This number, there are 55 students or registrations that haven't been approved by the nurse yet, so we will again pass that 507 number from last year. So again, having a larger registration 3 years in a row. All right, so with all those students that want to play our sports, we have to every year appoint 100 coaches. At the time we did this, it was 101 coaches. Pretty tall task when as far as the pathways that New York State allows us to certified coach. The first one is a phys ed teacher. This is the easiest path, and a lot of our phys ed teachers do coach. Then New York State has a pathway for certified teachers. So this is a math teacher, special ed teacher, et cetera. That is a different pathway for them. And the hardest pathway, which is the non-certified teacher. So this is an individual who does not have a license from New York State. This is one of the prongs that's growing the most over the last couple of years around the industry is people who come to us after their regular jobs and coach for us. Their certification process is the most robust. As the most things we have to track to get them across or get them to the starting line. On top of our coaching staff, we have our game day assistants. These are all the people behind the scenes that make everything work. Just to highlight a few of them, these are announcers, scoreboard operators. These are our chaperones. These are the chaperones that'll be joining us at County Center on Friday night. This is our supervision. We have a facility called Glover. Glover is a standalone athletic facility. It's not connected to the school. That presents supervision considerations. So we've been working with our internal staff and also with Breiger, our security group, to staff the gate, win the gate at Glover. We usually win the environment down at Glover. So we also staff, you'll see towards the end, we have police presence at events, and there are several sports where we have to have some form of an EMT. So that comes out of this budget as well. Last year, that totaled 119 timesheets that we were reconciling in the office. So it's a lot. It's a lot beyond just the coaching, the coaching staff too. All right, we have our instructional staff. highly talented phys ed and health teachers. Like I said, some of them wear two hats for us. They teach during the day, and then they stay after school with us. And they are our during the day instructional staff. Our facility overview. We are spread all over the district, and spreading to more spots, it seems, with every passing year. There are 26 total locations that we oversee in athletics, as far as fields, courts. Some of them are not even in our district, right? Some of them are bowling lanes that we go to, pools that we use, and ice skating rinks that we use. So we are really out there in a lot of corners of the district and beyond the district as well.
Joe, the asterisk next to the fitness center studio, is that because that's not open yet, or there's an asterisk?
It's a great question and a good eye. So we partnered with Friends of Pelham Sports to build a weight room concept that also had a cardio room attached to a studio. We're assessing that model right now. Now that we're in there and kind of using the space, we're looking at assessing whether we should continue with that studio space or maybe look at a different model. So right now there is no studio space. We don't know how, at this point right now, we don't know what it's going to end up coming. So I just wanted to say it isn't there, but it is a spot that we have been planning for and preparing for. So that's why I wanted to consider it up here. All right. You'll see the different gyms, our outdoor spaces. Most of those are housed at Glover or the two grass fields that bookend the building. Those are our tennis courts, our 4 tennis courts. That's also our track. And then I've even included this year the batting cages. I don't think I've ever spent so much time on batting cages, but it is an important facility. So that's our baseball and softball batting cages as well. And then in the last column, those are our different locker rooms, our changing areas that we use on a regular basis, including the field house at Glover. The very bottom there are some of the off-site places that we go to, like the pool, the Ice Hutch, Bowlerland, and Bowlerland. I like to say that we are the event planners of the district. A district our size, with as many offerings as we have, between the home and away games, you're going to be every year somewhere between 800 and 900 events. So you divide that by the number of days in the school. There are days we are hosting 6 events and 3 teams out, like at a bus. So it is a lot going on. If you look at the away, these are last year's numbers, 423. Those are events that need buses. All right, so you'll see when I get into the line by line, transportation is a huge part of our budget. I think it's our number 2 budget driver. A bus, $800 to $1,000 just to go somewhere below 287. And then you start getting into Rockland County, and we send teams upstate, and it adds up really quickly, that budget line. Also with these events, to Dr. Champ's point earlier about our 3, our strategic action plan, we do a lot with around the belongingness, like being a part of the community. So we have senior nights, homecomings, NIL, like the signing days, first responder nights, community, youth nights. So we're trying to connect athletics with the broader community. And one of the greatest events we run every year, and if you haven't been to it, it's absolutely phenomenal, is the Booster Club Senior Award Dinner. I've never seen anything like it. It's absolutely phenomenal. But that, again, is a heavy lift, especially for our boosters that support the programs. Purchase orders. This is, we're writing, I think we have like 138, we have 138 currently this year. Last year we had 145. I mentioned the purchase orders because there are rules. There's a lot of rules around how we purchase things and how we get quotes. And there's not a lot of rollover in it. It's not like we can just roll over and get the same stuff every year. New York State constantly changes their contracts with different the balls we have to purchase. So basketball has to be a certain basketball, volleyball has to be a certain volleyball. So if we just did a rollover, we would have like a playground ball show up. So there's a lot to this, especially as you get into some of the more nuanced stuff, like parts of a basketball hoop or wind screens. We want to make sure we're buying quality stuff that's going to last across several budget cycles.
And I just got to give Joe a little kudos. He's put a lot of effort and energy into inventorying of our equipment, uniforms in particular, things that there really weren't systems as efficiently in place as should be. So the ordering was not as thoughtful and efficient in the past. So
Yeah, and we'll see
done a
the-
tremendous amount of work, and that's, I think, saved us money
Yes.
and put us on a more systemic track about managing all the supplies and equipment for the program.
Yep, and the position that DJ Peters fills, he's really in there counting individual socks and uniforms. He's really making sure our fabric costs don't go up. So that's been good. And then we'll see later in the presentation, that budget line hasn't changed. That was a 0% increase because of how tight we're running it. All right. So this is an interesting thought concept here that I really haven't done the best job at highlighting over the years, but it is a theme you heard a lot in tonight's presentations. We have incremental costs every year, even if we don't add anything. We don't add any new away games. We don't add any new programming. We are going to have incremental costs. So the first one is this idea of we're growth without addition. We're not adding new programs, but it seems every budget line is being taxed or asked to produce more and more every year. Those are our variable expenses, right? So that is our facility rentals. Freezing water at the ice hutch is more inexpensive every year, so that bill comes to the community. Pool rentals, bowler land, et cetera. These are all things that increase year to year. Cost of goods, I mean, like a soccer ball is $70 now. I don't know how it got to that point, but it's true. Fabric, I was very close to bringing a high school jersey to today's presentation from the 90s when I played.
Yeah.
It's still in perfect condition. The stuff we're buying now from a fabric standpoint, it's paper thin, and you're lucky if it isn't arriving with the seams already ripping. And that's just the world we're in with and constantly having that built-in obsolescence to everything. Another one of our variable costs is transportation with an exclamation mark. That line really is a hard one to balance every year, and it grows. It's a hard moving target. And then we have membership costs. We want our coaches to all be members of their associations. We want to be a member of our associations, New York State associations. Those all have growing costs as well. And then the other part of this incremental cost is the idea of increased output. And this is, like I showed you earlier, there's just more student interest in what we're doing after school. So when the N increases, well, now you're buying more uniforms, you're buying more balls, et cetera. The wear and tear on stuff, it also increases. Something I like to call program actualization. It's just getting the program to how you envisioned it. It's making sure it has the full amount of games. It's making sure that it's living up to the vision and the mission that we have. And then when you do that, you kind of become a victim of your own success, because now you're busing to playoff games. You have multiple modified teams, a blue and a gold team. And we see that trend really started around 2013. The younger levels wanted to get more involved. So we met that demand by adding multiple modified teams. You get the longer seasons, larger rosters. You're just going to more tournaments. You're getting invited. This year we went to Westchester County Center, the girls basketball team. They were a showcase team this year at an event at the Westchester County Center. So another thing when this team start doing well, off season, everybody wants the team to be prepared coming into the season, so we're doing more in the off season, and that's driving costs. And then things like the fitness center as well, keeping that fitness center equipped and operating with staff and proper equipment. And again, kudos to our relationship with Friends of Pelham Sports. They've helped us a lot offset some of those costs. You'll see when from 2013 to 2023, we increased our offerings by 33%. Right, we've expanded. We've had requests for expanding new programs. So that next bullet point there is some of the requests that we've heard from the community, some that even have come up here at board meetings. There is a big curiosity about increasing our modified level sports, some of our current JV and varsity sports down to the modified level. tennis, swim, golf, indoor track and field. Varsity level asks have been flag football, boys volleyball, wrestling, skiing. A lot of these sports are boy and girl, so you're putting up two teams essentially as opposed to just one. And then there's these targeted expansions that maybe we should be considering around our current sizes of our cohorts. So, should we be offering a freshman girls basketball to have some symmetry with freshman boys basketball when that program has been growing a lot because of obvious recent success? JV baseball had a giant roster last year. Should that have been, should that have been considered for having two rosters, a JVB and a JVA? So these are just some things that we need to think about. JV football this past year, giant roster, and could have easily had like a freshman level or a JVB. So this is stuff that we need to consider when we look at new program requests. And then it's, okay, so a new program request comes in. How do we analyze this? So we are planning or adding with a plan. The first thing here is this idea of opportunity. Like, what is the student interest? What is the student interest over the next couple of years? We've seen a lot where districts kind of misassess that. They think there's enough student interest. They do all the startup costs, buy the uniforms, get everything in place, and then there isn't enough interest like a year or two later. So you're just kind of left with all those startup costs out the window. As far as opportunity too, it's Title IX. We are very balanced in Title IX. You'd be amazed how if you add one program, you're not conscious of the bigger landscape, the ecosystem that it's in, and all of a sudden you're out of compliance with Title IX. So we have to be really conscious of that. Cost analysis, it always comes down to dollars and cents, and that's why I'm talking to everybody tonight. What is the cost assessment with adding this new program request? And then the feasibility and impact. We have seen, we are packed in our spaces all night long. We've added more programs than we have facilities for. So it's, where can we add this new program where it'll be successful? All right. Staffing, sure, we can keep adding things, but who's staffing? We have trouble staffing like every other district in the area. So we have to consider that. The ecosystem impacts, we've seen new offerings cannibalize previously existing offerings because it wasn't considered where the student population would be coming to build that team's roster. And then there's the compliance element of everything. Everything has to be state and nationally compliant and locally here in Section 1. So that's the new program element that has built up over the years, our budget. And we get asked a lot to continue building our budget. So I just wanted to give some context to the board and the community. Some projects, I'll breeze through these in the interest of time. All those 100 coaches have to get properly certified. We're working really hard with Dr. Fitzgerald's office and HR to just get systems in place to get these annual appointments, get coaches to the start line at the beginning of seasons ready to rock and roll. So that's been a big lift. Will continue to be next year. Student leadership initiatives. We rolled out Captain's Council this year, which is our captains get together once or twice a season, and we go over themes around leadership and the needs of their programs. And a group this year that has to also be mentioned in this leadership element is our Spirit group. They are the individuals who are running our social medias. They are the individuals that plan our blackout and our whiteout. So having a touch point with them and really helping them lead in like a kind and community-based way has been a huge win for us. Department binder has started already, but this is just our centralized folder where all of our systems live. This job is a bit of a hobby. This is what I do on Sunday mornings. I work on the department binder. But it'll go into next year because it is, again, such a big department that branches all over the district. So that's one of our projects. Facilities project, thank you to John Condon and his team, helping us get that weight room and cardio center off the ground. And this past fall, we'd resurfaced the turf at Glover. And I've heard we can actually see it again underneath the snow. So it's good to see it. It will actually, the pellets will be really nicely packed so long as nobody goes out there and shovels or tries to alter the snow. Just let it melt. It will have the best surface if that expansion and contraction of the pellets happens naturally. If we get out there and start shoveling it, because we're really ambitious, we could begin to distribute the pellets in an irregular way, and that's $5,000 to $6,000 just to get the carpet re-swept. So, imploring the community, just let it melt. All right, so here's the actual line by line. Can you plow it?
Yeah. Can you plow it?
Snow blow it.
Don't. Even if you buy the expensive plow, you begin to push the snow, and the tire and the truck rips the turf.
Can I make
They're
a
not
quick?
cheap fixes.
Can I make a couple of comments if we get into the numbers? May I? Or I can. Or if you really want to go, I can wait till the end.
No, please break this
Okay.
up, please.
Okay, so the first thing is, my first comment is when you look at the increase in participation from the student body in sports, and it's like year over year, more and more kids, more and more students are participating. You probably kind of naturally respond to that in terms of, oh God, like more demands on resources. I need to do, more with the same or more with less. This is just going to be a problem. But I hope you occasionally reflect on that being an indication that you and your team are doing a fantastic job, right? You are in the business of getting kids to involve themselves in athletic activities, and they are doing that at an increasing rate every year. So, I know it's hard, but mission accomplished. So I just want to salute you for that.
Thank you.
And then the second point I wanted to make is on your slide about increased costs. And this is something that we were kind of discussing in an exec session, just informally, not in a decision-making role or anything. But I think there's another cost that's missing from that slide, and that is the cost of very demanding parents on you and your team. And
The time cost.
the time cost, the emotional cost, just the cost to your resources, your reserves of energy and patience and enjoyment of doing the job. I think that I don't think it's a Pelham problem. I think it's a national problem with the sort of industrialization of youth sports, that sometimes parents becoming increasingly unreasonable, potentially in my experience of youth sports, and you probably are on the sharp end of that. So I just wanted to recognize that as well.
Yeah, it's much appreciated. It's a community-wide endeavor. You'd be amazed now, at the point in my career where I haven't been on the sideline in a long time. I've been behind the desk. It really is a credit to our coaches. We have some of the most amazing coaches, and they are the touch point that the students are selecting. And we know teenagers, they're gonna vote with their feet. And if they don't like it, they're gonna go do something else. And they're choosing to be in front of our coaches, and our coaches are phenomenal mentors, and they're teaching character and transferable life skills. So I think that really is, from a philosophical standpoint, that's the why we've been so successful. So, and our parents are wonderful. It means a lot to people. Like these high school memories, it means a lot, and I think that's why there's such energy in some of the correspondences. But they've been absolutely phenomenal. So both
energy is a nice, delicate way of putting it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we are running the athletic placement process tomorrow. That is a lot of man hours. That's something where a 7th and 8th grader goes through a New York State Ed process to play up on varsity or JV. They have to go through a series of tests. That originally was for the once in a generation, exceptionally talented, and this is the wording in the document, athlete. It has now been expanded more broadly, and we're running a lot of kids every season through that, and that's become a very heavy lift in the office too. But it creates an opportunity, so we're willing to do it. But if parents are interested in that, they really just check out the guidelines and criteria for the athletic placement process. It is just not that we think our child's athletic. There's a social emotional element, there's a maturity element, et cetera. But thank you for mentioning those. All right, into the numbers. I believe this is page 19 in your packets, if I'm looking at the... If we
20?
have the same
I've
one.
got C28. I don't know.
28.
C28.
Yeah.
As long as we're looking at the 2855 lines.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll go through these as quickly as I can here. The first line here is just basically our salaries. So this is the office staff, this is myself. This is that line 132. It says official fees. In reality, it's our game day staff, the announcers, the score books, et cetera. So that's that line. The 150 lines, those are our coaches. Those are all those wonderful, talented coaches I was just mentioning. It's broken up into a fall line, a winter line, and a spring line. In there, you'll find our site supervisor. You'll find the fitness coach. You'll find the athletic coordinator. They're all in those lines there. You'll see the biggest increase. This is a variable cost. This is one of our biggest budget line. This is $925,000 next year. Each season will be going up because the structure of how our pay lanes work. So the more longevity a coach has, the more their stipend goes up. So you'll see there's, for fall, for instance, 11% increase. That means a lot of our fall coaches are here, they're staying, and they're moving up in lanes. So that cost will go up.
And on that point too, I know folks always, to go back to the Title IX question, folks always look for pay equity, and I think there's been a lot of intentional work in our pay scale for coaches to make sure that boys coaches and girls coaches are equal. So when you see variation between them, it often goes back to the year's experience.
Very good point.
But the scale itself does have pay equity, gender equity across the teams.
Thank you for mentioning that. So that's the 100 line. Our next line are our 400 line.
Sorry, can I just go back real quick? The addition of strength and conditioning coach, that's for the new weight room.
Yes.
And that's now a permanent fixture, that position?
Yeah, and that's where the Friends of Pelham Sports gave us some seed money to cover the first year or two of that. But that was the understanding, is we would then have to absorb the cost. So it was a gift that did have some additional operating, long-term operating.
And we will be, that's a 4-season position. That
Including
goes
the
into the
summer.
summer as well.
Right.
So it's one of the few positions that has summer responsibilities. And this past year, rolling it out, the student interest we used it a lot. So there's going to be a lot of ROI on that room and on that position.
Correct.
So the 400 lines, the 411 line, this is service charges. These are our entrance fees. So when a team joins a tournament, when a team goes to a track meet, et cetera, those are the entrance fees to go run at Laux, for instance, a big spring track meet. That's where we pay for the team to go in. These are our rentals, Bowlerland, et cetera. This is also our memberships, our coaching associations, and these are any mergers that we run. So we have 2 teams that run a merger, girls hockey, for instance, and that's about $1,900 a student. That goes to the host district. We pay a per pupil charge on that, and that comes out of the 411 line. The 413 line, this is what we call our reconditioning line. This line is a legal responsibility to make sure our helmets and shoulder pads are properly conditioned prior to every season. They have to go out to a company. They have to be recertified. Any ones that don't make certification get thrown out. Any ones that age out as well, after 10 years, they get thrown out and we have to purchase them back. This program has grown a ton over the last couple of years under the current guidance of Coach Vigiano. So we're sending out about 130 helmets a year between 7th, modified, JV, and varsity. So good problem to have, but helmets are not cheap and neither is reconditioning them. And nobody wants the old version of the helmet because there's the look and then there's the concussion rating on it. So we have to constantly be staying up on the newest look. So 414 line, this is our athletics administration line. This line is basically our athletic trainer. The lion's share of this line is Ruth, our absolutely amazing athletic trainer. It's a third-party trainer that we have a contract with Symmetry. physical therapy here in town. And it's great. It's provided us with Ruth for over a decade now, and she's the best in the game. This is also how we pay for coaches' CPR and first aid out of this line. Last line, not the last line, but the next line is our 450 line. This is our equipment and materials line. This is where most of our activity is. This is where most of our internal auditing processes overlook. This is how we buy all the incidentals, right? So anything that we have to buy year in and year out, nets for the goals, we just bought all those. Those are all arriving in the spring, and the nets are being strung for lacrosse, soccer nets, balls, etc. That all comes from that line there. And after that is our transportation line. And like I said, this is our big line. We've gotten our transportation down tight. And if you look, this is one of 3 lines that has a 0% increase. I think we've nailed it on the head, and we have it right sized now. So overall, it's a 4.9 increase year over year. It puts us about, you always want your athletic budget to be between 1 and 3% of the district budget, and we're right in that window, so we're in a really good spot going into next year. So, that's it on my end.
It's D1,
Yeah.
Budget, yeah, on D1.
charter and athletic trips.
Just a late night twist for
see it.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
Keep us on our
Is that how
toes.
you guys have fun?
Budget fun.
So Joe, thank you for this overview. And I just, for clarity purposes too, I know, both Joe and I and the board certainly have been approached by, with requests for different sports, as Joe mentioned earlier. I just wanted to be clear about that. Unfortunately, given the tightness of this budget, we did not budget in this for any additional teams as requested. So I just wanted to put that out there in the interest of transparency. But hopefully you've got at least a better idea of the thought process that goes into it, and what Joe is able to deliver with the current budget as it stands.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I chose the cheerleading. It was kind of tactical. That is one of our incremental costs, one of our sports that has become a victim of their own success.
They're great. Yeah.
So we had to bring another coach
Yep.
because there's a stunting and safety element to it. They go to tournaments now, so their busing has gone up, but they're winning. They're bringing back hardware. It's been really it's worth highlighting them. But yeah, they're also because they're an incremental cost, and it played into the budget tonight. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you. Have a good night. What's left of it? Have a good night. What's left of the night?
Well, I think that actually concludes tonight's line-by-line version. We had no business, planned for tonight. We certainly had a public comment, but
one's
no
here.
members of the public. So that concludes tonight's line-by-line. Next time is going to be largely instructionally focused. Dr. Comerford and team, and
Dr. Fitz.
and HR. So again, you're hopefully going to see some more of the themes of what we talked about in those initial buckets. But we're hoping, while it's not a growth budget, we're hoping that throughout this you continue to see the maintenance of the rich, robust programs that we're offering for our students. And thank you, Will, too, just for pointing out the success of the programs. I do think that, when I think back a few years and we set some targets of what do we want, we wanted kids to be accessing college-level programs. We wanted to make sure that kids were connected to clubs. We wanted to make sure that kids were connected to sports, because these are all the things that build connection and that have overall impact on school culture and on student success. So I think those goals that we set then and the environment that's being created by our leaders around the district and the staff are resulting in seeing that growth that we all aimed for. So thank you for pointing that out. So, all right.
Can I just, totally unrelated, but
Yeah.
sort of new business since we're at the end of the day, but I'll be quick. I had a couple conversations with Russ Solomon from the Village of Pelham Board of Trustees about the Glover pedestrian project, and he has spoken to Senator Fernandez, and it looks like they're going to get some funding to do some work on the intersection right by the high school and the
Oh,
library.
fantastic.
For the, like the
Like the level one
lights,
kinds of things?
the crosswalks and the lights and the, they need to do like an engineering study
Yeah.
before they do that. But, so it's going to take a little time, I think, but that's sort of step one. And then we have to continue to figure out who to work with in Mount Vernon for the intersection by Glover itself. But we're, making progress where we can.
That's
great.
That is exciting, Sid. Thank you.
Good news.
It's a lot of work coming to fruition. Thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Well, I think with that,
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
second. Who we claiming? All right.
Ready.
Anyone in
Sid and Dara.
Corner's ready.
All in favor?
Okay.
Give us the enemy.
All right. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you.